we have two teams 6-6 after the results. Bills and the Texans fighting their way to try to make the playoffs yet this year.
The Bills really needed this win. Like I know the
Oh,
Texans need a win, but they're still tied. They're down on a tiebreaker for their division. But like the Bills, the wild card fight is really scrappy, and
yeah,
they really needed this win, and they got it.
yeah, that's true. Bills all around pretty much this whole season has been. A lot of we say this about a lot of teams actually, but Bills especially, um, they've been pretty up and down. Um, where it seems like the games they really need to win, they end up winning, and in the games that like, well, they should win, then they don't. And it's really weird in that aspect. I think
Yeah,
uh, they know when to show up when they need to and everything, and the Texans were on a huge tear. Or a good win streak, I guess I should say. Maybe not a huge tear, but they're
yeah.
definitely uh, I adapted this really good identity for themselves, and I think this is their first loss about it. And overall, they shouldn't feel, I guess, too bad or anything because I think it didn't make them lose their identity in the long run.
No, and I mean, LaShawn McCoy really kind of tore up that defense. So he ran for over
Yeah,
100 yards,
yeah,
21 carries. Tyrod Taylor didn't have the best game actually, but he did win on the game. He only had 11 completions, I believe,
mm,
but he got over 200 yards, and I mean, he had the game-winning touchdown, it was a 40-yard pass. So, I mean, it was good enough, I guess.
yeah,
It wasn't. I mean, Brian Hoyer actually pretty went off pretty well. He had almost 300 yards and I think 3 touchdowns. It just wasn't enough, man. The defense was really the Bills cutting up the Texans defense. I think was really the story of this game,
yeah,
and that's what the Texans live by. If their defense holds and plays elite like it can and like it has in their more recent games, then they'll win more likely than not. But if you cut them up and run all over them and just put up points, really, which I know that's like the most basic thing, put up points, win the game. But I mean,
right.
that's kind of how it is against the Texans defense. If you force them into a shootout, so to speak. I know this wasn't a crazy high scoring game, nothing, but it's hard for them to kind of their style is that they kind of need a low scoring game, you know, based on the back of their defense on JJ Watt,
Yeah.
solid defense. Hoyer's good enough that he might be good for 2 or 3 touchdowns, but I mean, if he put up 30 points against the Texans, probably beat them. And that's what happened.
I don't know if I want to necessarily want the Texans to give up on Brian Hoyer, which is weird because in the beginning of the season they really wanted to. They really wanted Ryan Mallett in there instead.
Yeah, it did.
And now, like, when they ended up resorting to Brian Hoyer because they kind of had to, um, he hasn't. I don't know. Sometimes he can be disappointing for him. Other times, not so much disappointing. And this game, like, they ended up losing, but that wasn't a Brian Hoyer. Like
No,
he
this was
still played a good game.
the
Uh,
defense got beat. Who the Texans are, I mean, they just like you said. I don't think it necessarily shook up their whole identity and everything, but
yeah,
I mean, they got beat at their own game.
yeah,
They were putting up a defense and trying to hold the score down, and they got cut up, and then they blew a big play towards the end of the game.
right.
Really, it just sealed the deal.
I really hope that when it comes to next year, and you know what, depending on how the season goes, because neither one of these teams are out, and I think that's I said in the very beginning of the video, and I still really go by it that their records are both 6-6, and
Yeah,
for two teams to now be at 6-6, these are two very equal teams to go against. So it was actually a very good game all around. These teams
yeah,
play a lot like each other. They rely on their defenses. They try to rely on the run, and then they have two kind of younger quarterbacks that are. They have two quarterbacks that no one really thought was going to be the potential starting quarterback on either team too.
okay, yeah.
Like they kind of have similar stories in that aspect in a way, and it's interesting that the Bills overcame it and showed to be the better team, but I mean, even their win wasn't by like a lot. I mean,
No,
I wouldn't say like it was a super close game, but it also wasn't a blowout either. So, uh, just good all around. And I think for the Texans, what I would like to see for next year, depending if they make the wild card or they don't, or even if they win the division or they don't, because that's still a possibility out there, is I really hope that they still work with Brian Hoyer as the quarterback next year and see if maybe, um, with the um, off season and then like the summer, camp and between preseason to see what Brian Hoyer can really develop with in the Texans.
I do think they need to draft a quarterback though. I really do.
Oh yeah,
Hoyer might be the answer for now. I'm not. How old is Hoyer? I'm not sure off the top of my head,
I don't know
but
either.
I doubt that that's the guy you're thinking of sticking with at least long term. But I mean, you need to definitely. They need to think about long term. They need a quarterback.
Well, they do,
They
but I
need a
mean, they
franchise.
got by with Matt Schaub and T.J. Yates for years, and it
Yeah, well,
worked somehow.
sort of. I mean,
Sort of, yeah.
they
But
made playoffs a couple times. That's about it.
I'm just saying, give him a shot. But you know what?
Oh
Really,
yeah, I think you come in and he's starting next year, but I think you need to draft a rookie, and he would potentially benefit sitting behind him.
true. That
They
is a
they
good
just
point.
need to they got to start thinking about this as a future.
Yeah,
They got a defense. This has always been a defensive minded team. I think,
yeah,
especially in the last few years. Especially in the last few years.
yeah.
I mean I mean Clowney was a bust. It looks like. I mean even if he does turn out to put out some production, he wasn't worth the first round draft pick. That was a bust.
Yeah.
And I think you got to start. They need a quarterback. It's flat out, dude. They need a guy that can be a franchise quarterback, like the Colts found Luck, and it looks like Tennessee found Mariota, and Tampa found Winston, and they need someone like that they can groom, and maybe they don't have to start their first season, but they just need someone they can groom
You know
to
what
be
though?
the heir.
At
So,
this point, at 6-6, and then depending on what the record looks like at the end of the season, they're not going to get a quarterback like that though. That's the thing.
well, that's what I'm saying. They're probably not going to get a guy that is going to be the shiny, like he's ready to start immediately. They
Hmm.
need to get someone that they can bring in and that they're willing to let ride the bench.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I can see that. That's
I mean,
true.
how many quarterbacks that, you're talking about these elite quarterbacks now? Peyton Manning was a first rounder. Was Rodgers?
No.
Was Breeze? No.
No.
Was Brady? No.
No.
Well documented, no.
Yeah.
So, I memean, you can definitely get a guy and groom him and bring him up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and teams are just not as willing to do that anymore. But look at it, it worked for Tyrod Taylor. He sat behind Flacco for years, and now he got his chance, and he's been pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. He's doing pretty damn good. Uh, I still like Tyrod, and
Yeah,
that's what my
me too.
biggest question is. I talk about Hoyer on the Texans and his potential future. Tyrod though is what I'd be interested to see next year, depending on if the Bills make the playoffs or not. But when it comes to next year, is is he gonna get better next year, or is he a
Yeah.
fluke this year? Was this kind of like a 1 year deal with them?
I think he's legit. I think that
I
he's
hope
the only
so.
gonna get
I
better.
really do. I hope he is. I hope he's legit, and I hope he actually gets better next year. Because damn, that would make the NFC East way more interesting if they can
Yep.
get a better offense going. And for the Bills, that make the AFC East way more interesting.
I think that about wraps us up, huh?
Oh, definitely. Anyway, with that, you can tell us your opinions on both the future of the Texans and the Bills. And then we also have links in the description below that can follow us on Twitter and Facebook because, sometimes we like to say things on there too. And I don't know, we talked a lot about these teams' future for next year instead of
Yeah,
like
well,
even
I
the
mean,
future.
they're potential playoff bound this year, but
Yeah,
both of these teams you're really talking about next year. I mean,
yeah,
if you don't expect them to make waves even if they make the playoffs. At least I don't. It would be a huge shock to see the team in the Super Bowl, from my
True.
perspective.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a good point.
I thought so.